Anybody who's been following the conflict closely will have noticed that every few months, NATO announces that they're going to supply a new weapon system to Ukraine. And then there's always a great deal of excitement about it. This will be a game changer. That's what you always hear. There was the HIMARS, there were the small diameter glide bombs, of course the ATACMS themselves. But it was just, there have been other weapon systems too. And each one is supposed to be a game changer. And then there are some initial successes, but then within a month or two, the Russians figure out a way to neutralize them. And then that's it. You don't hear anything more about them. So anybody who's been paying attention just knows that this is meaningless. And in fact, the ATACMS already has been largely neutralized. So this really shouldn't make any difference. But then there are a lot of people who they're so caught up in the narrative, or they're just so distracted that they don't notice. They hear the excitement about the new game changer and they say, yeah, and then they don't pay attention. Then they hear about another one. Yeah. And they don't stop and think about, well, what happened to that earlier system, right? Anybody who's really thinking about this rigorously sees that it's been a series of failures, of embarrassments for NATO and particularly the U.S. These are U.S. made systems. So this is nothing new. This is just a continuation of of what we've seen throughout this war.
Do you think this will shatter the military-industrial complex?
Well,
we run. I just want to know, are we just going to keep lying about the strength of our military and being number one?
Yeah, no, we can. We keep on lying. Again, it's just that the trust in the military is still quite high, a lot higher than it should be. And so people do believe the lies, and just the general faith in the power of the West is still there. I think it's been shaken to a great extent outside of the West, but it stands solid in the West, because of these lies, efforts to cover up. And most people, again, there's just very few people who really read the news and analyze it rigorously. Anybody who did, even if you're looking at mainstream sources, you never look at a dissident source, you just read the New York Times, the Financial Times, all these mainstream publications that are full of lies. But they do, if you're looking at following the stories carefully, you'll say, hey, what happened to the HIMARS system? And in fact, if you're, one or two publications will come up with a report. I don't know which publication it was, but there have been stories that come out and admitted the utter failure of these earlier systems and say the Russians have learned to neutralize them 90%. Now, but you have to be kind of a back page reader to get to those stories. And most people are not, just don't pay attention, and they just, their general trust in the power of the West and of, particular of the Western military is just there. So they don't understand what's going on. It'll have to be something really traumatic, something that cannot be hidden, like the sinking of an aircraft carrier. I think that would really wake people up. But like the failure of the ATACMS, nobody will notice.
That was one of my questions. What would it take to really shatter that image and shatter the military-industrial complex? Because to me,
it wouldn't shatter the military-industrial complex, but it would do severe damage to the reputation.
Well, I feel like
of the MIC.
Then what would it take to shatter the military-industrial complex? Because it's clearly, to me, it's just coming apparent that the MIC is the world's largest money laundering scheme. Maybe number two. Israel might be number one. Who knows? But they failed their seventh audit in a row. They haven't passed a single audit ever.
Yeah.
There's something like $2.46 trillion unaccounted for. And they're just well, we don't know. But if I Venmo you, $30, the IRS is going to be all over our ass. So it's crazy that this is what's happening. That there's that this is a corrupt system. It's not producing. You can't produce many munitions. It's technologically not even that advanced anymore. I just saw India has just tested their long distance hypersonic missiles successfully.
Right.
The U.S. still hasn't been able to do this. So it's just we're pouring
We're
all
working
this
on one.
Right, we're pouring in trillions and trillions of dollars, and what's coming out at the other end is just a couple of drops. Where's the rest of the money going? Where is it? It's being funneled off somewhere, and it's unaccounted for, and they don't have to pass their audit, so they don't care. So this, to me, this thing is being exposed, at least to me, and hopefully to the rest of the world. And I'm just wondering, will that exposure break that system? Because it just, I don't want it to keep running. It's just a waste of money, and it just
right. It's going to take a lot. I mean, again, it's just, this is a very, very, very powerful complex, right? It's they've got their tentacles in Congress and the media, and it's not going to fall overnight. It's going to take a long series of reversals. Actually, I think there's reason to be hopeful that some light's going to be will be shown on the military and industrial complex and other corrupt institutions with the U.S. I was looking at I think the appointment of Matt Gaetz really could make a difference. The guy is a real gadfly, and he is he's fearless. I was watching this video of him actually walking through the halls of Congress and going from door to door and say, hey, this guy right here, like, he's the head of the ethics committee, and he was engaged in this corruption, just listing everything and saying, he's fearless. He points his fingers too. These are fellow Republicans too. It's not like he's just a partisan hack and he's just attacking Democrats. So I think that's, maybe some of these appointments will really make a difference. And if Tulsi Gabbard survives and she actually is appointed and is able to function in her new office, again, I think we'll see light, being shined on some of these problems. And that, that'll be another step in the right direction. Again, it's such a powerful complex that we're talking about that it's not going to be that any single blow will bring it down, but each blow that weakens it is good and should be cheered.
How many assassinations do you think we're going to see next year?
I don't know if they do that, at least within this country. They may at some point, but I don't think, I'm not sure, but I don't think that has been their preferred modus operandi.
Okay, well, we'll see. I know there's going to be some type of battle. That's a whole other war that is.
Yeah, there's no question. They're going to go after both Tulsi Gabbard and Matt Gaetz. Actually, I just saw there was somebody else, some person of Indian descent, that I can't remember exactly what his position was, but he had earlier threatened to change the J. Edgar Hoover building, to rename it like the Museum of the Deep State. And so he's been given a position. So there, maybe these people will make a difference. Again, I'm much more hopeful on the domestic front than I am on the foreign policy front, though. But maybe just on the domestic aspects of the military-industrial complex, the corruption that you're talking about, it's real. And that's been criticized over the years. Nothing really has been done about it, but it's been openly criticized, even by people who support the establishment foreign policy.